Hello and welcome. So, as you can see here, you have this masterful creation on your screen. What exactly is this? No, it's not a flower pot. This is the creation of this most unbelievable culinary sculptress. And this is where we're taking you today. Welcome to Elegantly Raw. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Elegantly Raw today. I am so happy we are going to actually take this cooked food, absolutely tantalizing work of art, and we are going straight to the sculptress herself, the Master Chef, because this is going to be a contest of you taking this stunning, absolutely delicious, incredible work of art and making it into a raw creation. So take it away, Kathy.
Hi, everybody. First, let me begin by holding up one of these. I call them Floral Whimsies because they're just a playful bit of dough that one can shape and bakes up in 10 minutes when you bake them and fill them with any number of fillings, which we'll talk about in a second. But before I start cutting and shaping the dough, I'd like to share with you what goes into the dough because it's a very simple process. Thank you. So this is the mise en place for everything that we'll be doing today or showing you today. I prepared much of this in advance in the interest of time. The top of the page, you'll see a very colorful saute of no oil saute with summer vegetables because I did this originally over the summer. And then as we go clockwise around the page, you'll see some sweet potato that will be the element that we use to moisturize the dough. We'll see some French beans directly below that. They will be our decorative element that lends to the floral creativity of the pastry. And towards the bottom, we have all of these in the little glass bowls are part of the mise en place for the dough. So the two gluten-free flours that we use are buckwheat flour and chickpea flour. Oh, you can hold it back up there if you'd like. Thanks. Then we have white pepper, some arrowroot, freshly ground gold flaxseed, onion powder and garlic powder. And I use 2 tablespoons for a batch of these of fresh herbs. I love to use herbs whenever I cook because they're such nutritionally potent plants to add to your cooking. We're using rosemary today. And to moisturize the dough, there's no liquid. There's just a little bit of white miso for its flavoring and nutritional benefits, and the sweet potato, as I mentioned. And up in the upper left corner is some bean puree, and no, that's okay. We'll talk about that when we talk about the fillings afterwards. So now let me show you what's involved. It's very simple. This is a very forgiving dough. Here's a block. This is a half batch for today, just so I can just give you an example of what's involved. When I take it out of the food processor, but it's all you do is add all the dry ingredients for the dough in your food processor, and then the sweet potato and the miso, and let it rip. And in 2 minutes, the dough gathers into a ball, and the sweet potato, which is still, I add it while it's still steaming. Still hot and steaming right out of the oven. And that helps to hydrate the dough itself, and it brings it together into a ball, and it actually creates a very tender dough that we'll be working with. So I'm gonna just sprinkle down some buckwheat flour. This is just nothing fancy. You can buy it already milled. I like to mill my own grains because I can control the coarseness or the fineness for the dish, and I generally like to try to use flours when I make them as coarse as I can manage, because it's healthier for us and for our microbiomes just to have a coarse flours that go into whatever it is that we're cooking. So as coarse as I can get away with. So here's just a little piece of dough. Oops. And I'm just going to, so it doesn't stick. You can use a rolling pin, and if you like, you can use just a little piece of wooden dowel, which is very nice because oops, I'm going to add a little more. This dough is not quite as warm as it normally is, so I'm just going to add from my little spray bottle a little water. So there we go. And a little more flour now. Yeah, normally when this is right out of the microwave, it's when I made it this morning, it's very pliant. I can see just having cooled down, it's a little crumbly now.
So you could also use an oven for that, correct?
Yes. Well, the oven for your sweet potato, you would just right out of you know, cook your sweet potato, and then as soon as it comes out of the oven, while it's hot to handle, but while you can still manage it, just open it up and peel it out.
So for the Raw Living Foods world, you can be using a dehydrator instead, everyone.
Oh dear. I'm afraid it's a little crumbly, but just having had the dough cool off, well, you know what? I don't think I'm going to shape it because I don't know. I'm sorry about this, but it's not warm enough to work with. So you really want to work with it when it's right out of the food processor, because it's pliant and it's beautiful. But so let me describe the process, because I think it will work more easily. So this again is just an example of the cup. And what I like to do is I roll it out to it's about 1/8 of an inch thick, and it's about a size of a 6 or 7 inch disc. And then I transfer that very simply I like to make these in a popover tin. Here is my trusty popover tin. I'm sure you've probably used these before. It actually makes a more attractive cup for these little whimsies because they're deeper and they're taller, so it's more evocative of a flower vase, frankly. And so what one does is you just simply take the disc of dough and fold it, round it a little bit, just hold it within your hands and cup it and place it in one of these receptacles. And this is where the artistry comes in, because and it's a bit of a creative act and fun, because what you can do is when the dough is soft, it just naturally folds and shapes to, and they're different. No two are alike. Here are several others that I made in the same batch just an hour ago. And the folds that it's just very appealing and attractive, but I space them out and I bake several of them, a batch at a time. I usually make 8 of them or so. And as you're making them, because the dough does tend to dry out, as we saw a minute ago, while I'm rolling out the subsequent ones, what I do is I have a simple water bottle, and all I do is spritz them as I put them in there, and I cover them up with just a clean dish towel and let them rest as I proceed to roll the next one out, and so on until I have all my batches of the floral cups ready to go, and I put them in the oven. I know for the raw chefs, you'll be dehydrating them, but for anyone who just wants to understand the process that I used, they baked at a 425 degree for 10 minutes. It's very fast when you do it in a cooked fashion, and they come out without any sticking at all, just effortlessly, which makes it very simple indeed. So let's talk for a minute about the filling, because I came up with the idea for these over the summer, spending more time in my kitchen, as many of you probably have, during COVID. And I was looking for a way to just refashion leftovers that I had in the refrigerator. I often cook up big batches of beans and sautés and stir fries and curries and whatnot. And for me, food is always more festive if you wrap it up in a bit of dough. It's just more fun to eat and to look at. So what I had and decided to use was, let's talk about the veggie sauté that I used, which is, again, very simple to use. I originally did this over the summer, but you can use any seasonal vegetables and make whatever kind of concoction you would like as a sauté or as a stir fry. Here we started with onions and garlic and fresh thyme, or any other fresh herbs that you have from the garden, because they're so nutritionally dense and full of flavor. I like to use herbs in everything I do, just like the rosemary that we used in the dough. We have a little eggplant, a little zucchini and yellow squash, and basil, and let's see, and just some red miso that went in there and pepper to flavor it. But
Kathy, would you mind bringing it up front so that
absolutely
you can see it up close, please? Thank you so much. Ooh la la, yes.
Yeah. So you basically want to use a lot of color in your cooking. Color is a surrogate for phytonutrients and full of antioxidants, just full of nutritional value. So anytime you can bring color, and also we respond emotionally to color in our food. So, whatever it is that you're doing, just mix it up with colors and with textures and with flavor. You can add hot chilies to this. You could use a Mexican chili with a whole different flavor profile, or an Indian curry. And so all of, whatever nationality or ethnicity of the dish that you want, these are very versatile. You can fill them with almost anything. The other filling that we'll be using is some of a black bean dip. Let me bring this right up too. Now, black beans don't look like much, I know, but this is actually packed with flavor, because what goes in this bean puree, which you simply whip up in your food processor as well after you cook black beans, or use canned beans if you do, or so forth.
And for the raw community, that would mean that we would be using sprouted beans.
Sprouted beans, indeed. Even better in terms of absorbability of digestively. What I do is I roast a head of garlic and peel the garlic. But if you weren't roasting, you would just maybe use a lot less of it because it's much more potent. And I have oregano in here. I have quite a bit of fresh cilantro. I have freshly ground chipotle chili. And what else do we have in there? That might be it. And lime juice. So this was a little bit of a Mexican feel for black beans, which I tend to like to eat my black beans this way. But one could easily do a different sort of bean or lentil component if you wanted to use mazur dal, red dal or chana dal, and do an Indian flavored dal. As long as it's not too liquidy, you can fill these cups with anything. Anything like a soup, of course, would tend to soften the crust too much, and you might run into problems. But anything with a certain amount of consistency and liquid would be, perfectly fine. And to top it off, I happen to have these beautiful French beans, the haricot vert, that they're just lovely to work with. And I blanched these. So these went into just boiling water for a couple of minutes until they're tender, crisp. You don't want to overcook any vegetable that you would be using. And if you use raw vegetables, you don't have that issue. But because it would flop over, and that would be unfortunate. So let's fill these cups. Let's make a little room. And this, of course, is just easy peasy. So when you're making your cups, let's pick a couple of these here. One thing that I'll just tell you, so you can look into the cavity. You want to create an opening that will make it easy for you to fill. So when you put it into your tin, let's bring the tin back here for a second. When you place it in there and you're shaping your flour, you want to make sure you get a finger in and around the bottom to flatten the bottom, because this will be your standing surface afterwards. If you don't do that, it's not hard to do. It's very soft dough, but if you don't do that, you may get a rounded bottom, and then it would tend to tip in your plate, and that, it's not what we're going for. So we want these to be freestanding because they're very lovely as an appetizer, or even served as an entree if you use a larger plate and have a bed of salad, baby greens, or other vegetables that you may want to surround the floral whimsy, or two. If you're having it as an entree, you might serve 2 or 3 of these. So let's fill them with some of these fillings and show you how easy that is. Okay, so we can just start with any of them. So what I've done in this case, what I found worked well, they don't hold that much, but they're flavorful, and that's why you want to really build flavor and seasonings into all of this, because it's just a mouthful in some flavorful dough. So I put a couple of teaspoons. These are little espresso spoons, so they don't hold very much, but I'll show you in a second. So I fill about this much with the sauté. And then might need 2 spoons for this. I continue with a couple of spoonfuls of the beans. And sometimes, depending on how the flour is, you may have more than one area that you can fill, or sometimes it's just the central cavity. And then a little more, and I'll choose, again, you want to have some color, you want to have a little red and orange and yellow, various colors for the top here. It's just a little covering. And this is when I would take our beans. Here they are again. I cook these again. These are blanched, but you can use whatever vegetable raw that you would like. I just thought a little elevation, something with some height, would be attractive here, because again, it gives the impression of something sprouting and growing and nature.
So we could also use some sprouts. Those of us in the raw food community could use some sprouts as well, or some microgreens.
Microgreens would be beautiful. Mushrooms, well, I guess you wouldn't want to eat those raw, though, probably. So sometimes what I do, depending on how deep you want to go, is these will displace a little bit of, let's see if we can just find out where the cavity is here. sure all standing. Oops, let's pick a different one. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple of these and then I'll hold them up for you. Might be able to put a little bit more in here. They're all different. And when you form, it's rather like working with clay. When you form the dough in the popover pan, you can take a minute and just play with it. Let the dough, spread it out a little bit, make it into a shape. The dough basically does it all by itself. You just help it along a little bit to take an individual form that is a little evocative of a flower. Okay, and a little of the bean dip again. This one has a wider opening, so it probably can fit more in it. Back to the topping. Okay, and then I like to, just with the beans have two endings, you know. There's the one where the beans are attached onto the stalks, that the stems that they grow on, and then they often have this very pretty little delicate tip on top, and those tips are what I like to show at the top because they're just visually more interesting and more natural looking instead of so these make just a very pretty, eye-catching appetizer. Oops, let me go put this one here, actually. So just to give you an idea,
That's absolutely stunning,
they
stunning,
look
stunning.
like they're so difficult to make that, you know, but they really, the dough does all the work all by itself. And that's really all there is to it. And I like to serve them warm because the dough is just tastier, and all the contents are tastier when they're a little bit warm. So you can just put them in a slightly warm, even your dehydrator or your oven just to reheat them. But there we are, floral whimsies for any time of year, just to make things bring a little more color and joy into our existence right now when we're so restricted.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. This is exactly the work of art that I know we're all capable of doing. Thank you, Cathy. That's stunning. Can you tell us something about yourself, Cathy?
Sure. Well, my name is Cathy Katin-Grazzini. I live in Connecticut, where we're having a beautiful reprieve from winter. It had gotten very chilly and it even snowed, but now we have a 60, almost 70-degree weather this weekend, so it's a blessing. My business name is Cathy's Kitchen Prescription, and you can find what I do on cathyskitchenprescription.com, my website, and Instagram page by the same name, or Facebook and so forth. I'm also a food editor for VEGWORLD magazine, which is a large online, one of the biggest vegan magazines. It's free. I encourage all of you to check it out at VEGWORLDmag.com. You can sign up for a free subscription, which entitles you to our issues past and future, as well as all our social media, and which we have newsletters and all sorts of articles and interviews with vegan chefs and influencers of every type in our diverse community. And as food editor, I'm always looking for talented chefs to feature. So please drop me a line at Cathy@VEGWORLDmag.com, my email. If you have photogenic, healthy vegan restaurant recipes that you might want us to feature in one of our upcoming issues. So I'd like to promote people that that are new and are coming up and haven't gotten much exposure yet, but have the talent, because we all need a break. And that's what we're here for, is to support one another. And our message of eating healthy and nourishing cuisine, and bringing cooking back into our lives, because it has, in our country, our food culture is has to fight against an onslaught of industrial and commercial interests, and we've lost connection with our food and where it comes from. And it's a source of great joy and self-love and nurturing of others. So that's what I'm all about.
Well, this has been quite the treat for me. And Cathy, I am so happy that you were able to be on today. I do have some comments to make to those of you who wish to enter the contest. Yes, we do have a contest. And this is for anyone. You don't have to be a professional chef. Obviously, you probably have a little edge if you're a professional chef, but to recreate this stunning recipe, and it's also quite fulfilling, very nutritious recipe as well. And you can do this by actually entering at my Facebook page, which is DOREETDIJK. I would like Cathy to just bring up the Floral Whimsies to the screen so that we can highlight it, please. And what I'd love to do is to make sure as well that those of you who are new here, that you know that this is actually a raw show, but what we're doing today, and I'm going to be doing several contests of showing you cooked foods and how to make them, and then ask for you all to come up with your own recipes of how to make this into a living foods creation, artistic creation, of course, and also how to make this into something that you have never thought of. So wetting your creative juices, getting back into the kitchen, going against this new culture of eating out all the time, rather than taking us back into the kitchen, where we can completely and totally begin to work on changing our relationship with food. So when you enter this contest, you will be getting a prize at the end. And the contest goes until the 31st of December. And Cathy and I will be selecting who we believe most represented these floral whimsies, which is what we're calling them. And pardon, Cathy, what did you say?
No, I just giggled, just laughed.
And also, you enter them by actually bringing them to the website, to my website, DOREETDIJKE. Sorry, that's the Facebook page. Go into the Facebook page, and there you can enter the competition by just putting competition entry or contest entry. And the contest is really for people just to see what they can do. We want you to actually go back into the kitchen and start playing with nature. Be playful. It's called the play zone, is what I call it, so that we can start really reconnecting with our food and changing the imbalance that we now have with nature that we have created because we've given our power away to corporations and others to actually be in charge of our food supply. And that is something with this show that I would very much like to change. So we don't have any time, unfortunately, for anything else, but make sure that you spread the word so that others can also enter this contest. And then we're going to be having prizes, lots of prizes, and I'm going to be announcing them as we go along. And remember our Zero Food Challenge, and tune in on Wednesday to our Creating Resiliency group at 12 noon. And Cathy will be joining us there too. And Cathy will be joining me from time to time throughout the year, because we are going to be working together on changing the food culture, or should I say the non-food culture, because these are food-like substances that most people are actually eating on a regular basis. And I would like to see us get back to a place where healing and love abound. So until next time, everyone, I want to thank you all for coming in today, but specifically, I want to give a big shout out to Cathy. Cathy, any last word to the audience?
Well, it's been my pleasure. I hope this kindles and ignites a little spark of curiosity about playing with our food, getting our hands dirty, and our bellies full. So I'm glad you joined, and I hope you come back.
Thank you, everyone. See you next week. Next week, we have Sandor Katz, who is a master at fermentation. And the show next week will be fermentation as a metaphor. So looking forward to seeing you all there next week, same time, 11 o'clock on the Jane Unchained News Network.